Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillahi sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wasallam. Welcome back to our program, Seera of our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, the simple understanding. Now, when the Prophet's mother and Ayman and the son Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam went to Medina, remember this is a journey of close to 500 kilometers going for ziyarah, because of course the Prophet never saw his father when he was born. So at least something that will remind him that he had a father was to go and visit his graveyard. And of course the death of Abdullahi was a shocker also to his father Abdul Muttalib, because Abdullahi was the smartest of all the children of Abdul Muttalib. So they went together and spent a month there, and then took her way back to Mecca. On the way, Amina had a severe sickness. Those days, the journey used to be made on foot, or if you have a donkey, or if you have a camel, or if you have a horse. And definitely a horse is for those people who are rich, not for anyone. All right? So took a whole month, and when they were coming back to Mecca, Amina felt sick at a place called Abwa. Abwa was in between Mecca and Medina. Death befall Amina, who is the mother of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now picture this: your father died before you were born. Your mother dies on the way. Yeah, when you're going to visit your father, on the way, your mother dies, and you are left only with your servant, maid servant. That was Ayman, because Ayman was maid servant of Abdullah. So when he died, of course, he was left with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was left in her care. Now Amina also had died, the mother of the Prophet. Now this is something that we need to focus on. Just imagine you as a father of the house, you're not there. Then the mother goes for a journey together with the child and the servant, and then the mother dies. In reality, if you treat your servants well, they will take care of that child. Of course, Ayman was treated so well in the family of Abdullahi. That is why even when Amina died on the way, Ayman took good care of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. She took good care of the Prophet until the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam will say that after my mother, Ayman is my mother. There was a time that Abu Bakr came to the Prophet's house and opened the door, came, sat down, and they were talking. Right? So Ayman was, of course, in the house, and she felt thirsty, and she wanted a cup of water. Abu Bakr says the Prophet literally jumped and ran, went and brought a glass of water for Ayman. Then Abu Bakr asked, Ya Rasulullah, what was that behavior all about? She is just a servant, by the way. The Prophet said, after my mother, Ayman is my mother. All right? Now, us living today, how well are we treating our servants back at home? Are you treating them so well that when anything happens to you, they will be ready to take good care of your homes and your kids? Nowadays, it is hard to see a servant staying in a house for even a month. They will run away because they are not treated well, they are not being given food, they are not sleeping well. But there are other houses that I know a servant can stay even for 15, 20 years because of the treatment that they get in those houses. So the child was brought back to Makkah, of course, and to the care of his grandfather, Abdul Muttalib. And again, Abdul Muttalib could not stay with the Prophet ﷺ for so long, because at the age of 8, his grandfather Abdul Muttalib also died. All right, because Abdul Muttalib was always passionate about the grandchild, and of course also his children. Now when the Prophet ﷺ, Abdul Muttalib died and there was no one to take care of him, of course he was left in the care of his uncle who is Abu Talib. Abu Talib was one of the the uncles of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he died. Abdul Muttalib died when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was at the age of 10. Now you need to master this, of course, in the Seera of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That number one, he was born while his father was already dead. When his father was already dead. Number two, his mother died while the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was at the age of 10, or rather at the age of 6 years. Okay, so at 6 years, the Prophet was a total orphan. Number three, his grandfather Abdul Muttalib died while the Prophet ﷺ was 8 years old. So he was taken in the care of his uncle Abu Talib. The Prophet ﷺ at the age of 12, he had started doing some small works, right? He had started doing some small works for the people of Mecca so that he could earn some income. Those days were not like today, whereby when you reach the age of 6 or 7, you go to school. No, those were days that you are taught business, you are taught to do something so that you can bring income in the life of those people that you live with. So he stayed with Abu Talib for 40 years. Okay, because remember, at the age of 40, the Prophet ﷺ was given prophethood. And some few years later, Abu Talib also died. All right, and it was a period of 40 years. So you need to understand that also the Prophet stayed or lived with Abu Talib at the age of, for a period of 40 years. Now, let's get back to Ayman. Ayman got married to Zayd bin Harith, who was also foster brother of the Prophet ﷺ, if I'm not wrong. All right. Now, Zayd bin Harith married Ayman at the request of the Prophet ﷺ, and they, Ayman gave birth to one of the most cherishing young men on earth. That is who? Osama bin Zayd. Osama bin Zayd was a commander of an army of the Prophet ﷺ at the tender age of 17 years. He was given a responsibility of a whole army at the age of 17 years. Why? Because he came from the noble stomach of a noble woman, that is Ayman. And we are told all the time, if you want a noble child, go for a noble woman. A noble woman, if you want a noble child, go for a noble man. So these are the most important points that we get in the life history of the Prophet ﷺ that we need to master so much so that we can get the importance of our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now remember, I always not fail to remind you, when you hear the name of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, pray for him. Say sallallahu alaihi wasallam or Allahumma salli wa sallim wa barik alayhi. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.